Hey everyone, Matt Jobin with Reach Your Summit. I've had several of you asking me what I might bring with me on a specific winter trip. So I have a solo winter trip planned in the next couple of days, and I thought I would just put together a little video for you showing you what I'm bringing on this specific trip. So with the little free time that I have coming up, I'm planning on doing just an overnight with a 16-mile out and back section of the Appalachian Trail in Massachusetts. I'm also taking this as an opportunity to test out a couple of products together that I haven't done in the past to see how well they work in the conditions during this trip. Now, earlier today I was out for a bike ride with shorts and cut-off gloves on, and I was very comfortable. They had predicted it to be deceptively warm, close to around 60 degrees Fahrenheit for December 3rd. Is pretty uncommon in New England this time of year. So the weather pattern is going to be changing very quickly, and the conditions that are predicted for when I'm doing this trip are going to be 35 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and a temperature of the teens at night, and low 30s the following day. So colder weather is definitely going to be making a comeback, and I don't anticipate too many challenges on this trip because the conditions and weather patterns have been like this frequently. They've been all out of whack, but I am taking a few considerations into planning when I'm getting stuff together for this trip. So my pack choice for this trip is going to be the Black Diamond Element 45. This pack has become a favorite of mine during winter trips. It's performed very well. It does have more element protection, hence the name, than some other packs might. It will withstand rain to a certain extent and snow. And the reason I'm going with this pack, this space is going to be plenty for me for this trip. Just being an overnight, I might actually have a little too much room, but I am going to be bringing a couple of bulkier items. I also want to have water bottle pockets, which I have on the side here, and also on this side. If the weather was really bad and there's a lot of snow, I do have some options here for an ice axe or a snow shovel with the tool loops. And I also have some straps at the bottom here for my ridge rest pad that I'll be bringing, and I'll show you that in just a second. And lastly, it'll be nice to have some hip belt pockets for this specific trip, so I can access snacks, my maps, my compass, and also I want to film this trip, so this will make it a little easier for me to do all of these things. Also going to be using a trash compactor bag as my pack liner like I always do. Despite the conditions being predicted to be pretty sunny throughout most of the trip, I'm still going to bring this in case the weather patterns can change. They can frequently here. And this is going to give me extra waterproofing and protection along with the pack itself. Here's the back of the pack. So my shelter choice for this trip is going to be a hammock system. And there are a lot of great options to hang in this specific area that I'll be in on the trail. And I know that from past experience on the trail. And I also prefer to avoid shelters when possible due to the possibility of mice in the winter time being at that shelter. And I just like having a slightly more wild experience being in a hammock or a tent over a shelter. So I'm doubling up with pads for this trip. I have the Thermarest Ridge Rest, which is going to go on top of this pad. On other cold weather hammocking trips, I've used the Ridge Rest with a Pro Light Plus. This time I am going to test out the Thermarest NeoAir X Therm and put this on top of that. I really love this pad, and I've used it on many cold weather trips, and I haven't used it with the hammock system that I'm bringing out yet, so I wanted to test that out on this specific trip. In here I have my inflatable pillow and a 17-degree down-filled sleeping bag. I tend to sleep warm, so I don't want to overheat too much. If I do start to get cold with this bag, I will also bring my Sea to Summit sleeping bag liner. That'll add a few extra degrees of warmth to this, along with my sleep clothing. And I'm very confident in this setup working for me on this specific trip. So the rest of my sleep system for this trip, I have a mid-weight capelline base layer, a mid-weight pant, some very cozy, thick wool sleeping socks, packet of hand warmers just as a worst case scenario, and a merino wool buff, which I can fashion as a hat if I wanted to. And then the bag for all of that. My sleep clothes are going to remain inside of my pack throughout most of the trip. The only time they will come out is when I'm getting ready for bed and using them for sleeping. That is it. They are not going to be used during the day. So I have my food bag here, and I have a lot of high-calorie items inside of it and a really high-calorie dinner. I'm going to be burning a lot more calories during the winter time than I am in three-season conditions, and it's also a little more difficult to want to stop and eat things in the winter time. So going with things that I really like is going to make that a little easier on me. So I have some trail mixes in there, some chips, some Reese's peanut butter cups, and I have a really nice quinoa vegetable soup that I'm going to be putting together at night at camp, and some hot chocolate and things like that. This is just a collapsible mug that I am going to be using in the morning for some coffee, because I'm planning on cooking with this stove for this trip, and I don't want the taste of the quinoa, spices, and vegetables to mix with my coffee in the morning. Even after cleaning this, I could still end up getting that a little bit, so I don't want any hints of that in my coffee. And then I have my long spoon, because I'm going to be eating my meal that I put together right out of this pot here. In here I have my first aid kit, my gear repair kit, my personal hygiene kit, and a couple of other emergency items. I have my sunglasses in here, a slightly bigger multi-tool for when I have my gloves on. It'll be easier to grip this than my Swiss Army Classic SD. This is the Swiss Army Spartan. And my Black Diamond spot headlamp with lithium batteries inside. The lithium will work a lot better in the colder conditions. In here I have my Anchor external battery, and in this pouch I have some charging cables for my Sunto watch and for my iPhone, and I also have an extra set of lithium batteries. There's going to be plenty of water filling opportunities for me on this trip. So my water storage is going to be in this Nalgene bottle, and I can insulate it with a wool sock if I need to. And then I have my insulated cycling bottle here that I will be using to drink out of during the day. So for water treatment on this trip, I'm going with chlorine dioxide tablets. A water filter is not going to cut it once it gets below freezing, and I personally prefer to not use a UV pen. I'm going to go with tablets for this trip. I do have a full fuel canister So if I do need to boil water, I can boil it. And so this is going to work just fine in conjunction with keeping track of my water usage throughout the day. For traction and stability and support, I'm going to bring the Catula micro spikes with me, just in case there are some spots where it's a little slippery. I am going to be hiking near an area called the Ice Gulch. And also with all the recent rain that we've had, I can anticipate that freezing and causing some footing issues. So this will give me a little more reassurance that I can have sufficient traction. And then my trekking poles here. I have the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer jacket here, and this is going to stay in my pack and only be used when I'm stopping to take breaks if I'm feeling really cold. And I can also use this as part of my sleep system at night if I start to get chilly. And then I have an extra pair of dry mid-weight hiking socks that are merino wool for if my socks that I have on during the day hiking in get wet, I can put something else on and have something dry without dipping into my sleep system bag and pulling out my super thick sleep socks. And also with that thickness of that sleep sock, I am more likely to sweat in that, which is something that I want to avoid when I'm out in colder temperatures during the day and I'm frequently moving around. Alright, and my activewear for this trip, I have my Gore-Tex boots. Definitely going to keep me comfortable in the colder temperatures. If it were above freezing, I would go with a trail runner, but I'm going to go with the boots for this trip. I have my insulated cycling gloves. These are going to keep me plenty warm, and they also have touchscreen compatibility, so that's going to work well with the phone that I'm going to be bringing with me to film this trip. I also have a Smart Wool beanie hat that's with merino wool, a pair of Darn Tough mid-weight hiking socks, also merino wool. I have another Patagonia base layer pant with the Outdoor Research Helium 2 pants. These pants are going to act as a wind block and also block precipitation if it does start to occur. And that's going to keep me a little bit warmer and wick away sweat. And then for my upper layers, I have a lightweight Capeline long sleeve base layer. I have the Patagonia R1 fleece for insulation, and I have a waterproof breathable Pertex Quantum jacket, and that's going to give me wind block and precipitation block on the outside also. I'm going with a little bit of extra warmth for this while I'm moving around because I'm going to be moving slower. I'm going to be focused more on the experience and nature of this trip, and I also want to share it with all of you, so I will be recording that as well. And my splurge item is going to be a good book. So with the daylight dwindling around 4:00 p.m. now, I'm going to be in my hammock a lot longer than I would be in 3-season conditions, and I'm going to need something to keep me occupied.